Do you remember a time, not too long ago from now maybe, the simple pleasures of things like playing with marbles or that favorite toy you really like? I know there was one time I was completely in love with this Superman toy, and I spent hours, literally hours, before my parents could drag me out of the store and bring me back home. Well, in recent times, we see children walking around with phones in their faces and iPads, and I think we've lost a bit of that magic that comes from toys. And I think that is the problem we face here today, as Toys R Us Asia tries to bring the digital and to meld that with the physical toys. Today, we are Team Nexus, and I'm Elliot. This is my colleagues, Elena, Hua Jie, and Cheng Liang. And today, we're here to present to you our E3 strategy for how Toys R Us Asia can re-establish itself and to meld the physical with the online. Now, a bit of context about where Toys R Us Asia is today. And we see that Toys R Us Asia has a lot of capabilities and competencies in the retail space. However, although it's an established retailer, it had difficulties breaking into the online segment. At Toys R Us Asia, also the challenges in terms of getting that consumer experience online are prevalent. Also, ad hoc logistic management issues have caused difficulty in supporting these processes. Hence, we see that where our strategy can take Toys R Us Asia into the future. Firstly, to become the dominant player both in the online and retail space, and secondly, to develop synergies consistent both online and in retail, and thirdly, to establish strategic systems to support these, both online and retail. We identified several key issues here that are worth mentioning. Firstly, what strategic considerations would it be in implementing this online and retail space strategy for Asia? Secondly, how to keep these synergies between the online and offline space, as well as how to develop processes that will support these. And as Elena will explain through our situational analysis, these are considerations to keep in mind.
Thank you, Elliot. So we take a step back to look at what Toys R Us Asia has been doing in the online space. Well, in Taiwan, it was started with home delivery service that really later subsequently drove the online shopping experience. But in China, they alternatively chose Tmall out of an immediate need to find a partner to work with. And similarly in Malaysia, they chose Rakuten because it was a presented opportunity at that time. But the implication here really, we see that these ad hoc strategies that they chose out of whatever was presented at that time, what's the downside of it is really that it's time and resource consuming for the company. And it's also subjected to changing consumer tastes. So our recommendation here today is moving ahead, Toys R Us Asia really needs to adopt a strategy that is less tactical and more strategic, less short-term and more long-term. So how do we do that? We go back by looking at why Toys R Us should go online. We see that there's increasing substitute for kids' entertainment. Beyond just the toys itself, we have kids playing with iPads, kids playing with computer games, and there's really a need to revive sales in physical toys itself. There's also increasing adoption of smartphones, and this really means that Toys R Us needs to go where our consumers are, which is online. And there's increasingly parents, if they are increasingly time-strapped and busy, with them having to take care of both their houses and as well as their work. So we really need to provide convenience for them in their purchase experience. So the considerations that Toys R Us definitely has their worries when they want to go online. And firstly, they realize that their core competency lies in in-store experience, and they're worried that as they go online, they will not be able to replicate such an experience. So really, our strategy today strives to replicate such a fundamental relationship online so that we can keep the magic that Toys R Us has always been bringing onto for its consumers. We also realize that you are quite concerned about the lower profit margins that have been online sales compared to offline sales. And what we really want to do here is to create a differentiated shopping experience that allows them to command the same prices as their offline stores. So we really want to break down the barriers and to create a systematic and unique online experience for our users, and to really reap the synergies between both our online and offline stores. But how do we do that? We look at the different components that make up the online experience. What we really want to create today is an experience that is uniquely Toys R Us, one that is engaging and interesting, and will be able to draw our users to us through the online platforms. When we look at who are our target consumers, we realize that it's not just the kids, because while the initiator and the people that are drawn to the toys are the kids aged 3 to 10, The ones that really make the purchase decision are our parents, but the end users are then the kids. So there are two target groups here that we really need to address, and this is what our strategy will do today. And the net result we want to have here is really for our online stores to drive our offline sales traffic and vice versa. And this is really what we see as the best way to reap the synergies. So how do we really do that? Well, the first thing that we want to establish is the need to move away from intermediary platforms such as Rakuten and Tmall, and really to adopt our own platform to provide an augmented experience for our users. Because being just one retailer in these intermediary platforms, we are unable to establish a special experience for our users. And also, we want to enhance our omni-channel strategy. While USA has done right in terms of providing synergies, having our users being able to choose whether they want delivery or pickup, whether they want to pay online or at the store, realize that, beyond just providing such convenience, we really should look to having an emotional appeal. Should have our strategy be able to, our omni-channel strategy should really be able to bring that emotional appeal to our users both online and offline. So today us at Nexus Consulting will present to you our E-Cube strategy. We need to explore our strategic considerations, we need to provide an enjoyable online and offline experience, and we want to establish support systems in terms of having partnerships for our delivery systems. So what really are our strategic considerations here today? When we look at it, there are two main components of it, the online experience, as well as the logistical systems to back it up. So in terms of online experience, there are several factors that we have looked at. In terms of online penetration rate, we really want to look at how often do our consumers shop online and whether online is the best way to reach them. We also want to consider our consumer purchase behavior, such as what middle channels would they like most, or how are they best engaged. And we also want to know what drives their purchase. Is it word of mouth? Is it the physical touch of the toy? And then we need to look at our supporting financial systems, what are the preferred modes of payments for them. Because for example, we know that in Singapore, credit card payments are very, very common and often used, but in countries like China and India, there's a general distrust to credit payment systems. So we need to know what are the best tactics that we should adopt here. And then we look at our logistics management systems. Similarly, there are several factors we need to consider. In terms of store density, we need to know how close are our consumers to our stores and how easy is it for them to access the stores. We need to know what are the consumer preferences. Similarly, whether cost and speed is important to them and which emphasis should we place. We need to know in terms of infrastructure, is transport infrastructure developed in the country, and also whether we have partners to work with in each country. So these are really the factors that we need to consider expanding into Asia. So while these factors will be the ones that guide Asia, how exactly do we employ them in each country? And allow Hua Jie to tell you how this strategy can employ in Hong Kong, because you know, Toys R Us today is looking to expand their online space in Hong Kong.
Thank you, Elena. So now we're going to take you through how we are going to make the consumer purchase experience more enjoyable. So now let's take a look at how, sorry about that. Sorry about that. So how are we going to enhance the online purchase system? So taking a look at the existing platforms that Toys R Us has, it has an excellent loyalty program, and also it has already established online stores. So what this means is, the next question is that how are we going to bring these two together to give it out to our consumers? So if you take a walk down on the streets and you see usually kids, they are glued to their mobile devices, whether it is in terms of mobile phones or tablets, and more often than not, they are going to be playing games. So what this means is that Toys R Us has to develop a game on mobile platforms. So today, we at Team Nexus are proud to present to you our brand new game, Spotlight. Spotlight is going to be a game put on platforms such as mobile devices as well as computers. and these are going to be tied together on an online platform whereby users can play anywhere and at any time. So the users of these are going to be both boys and girls. And the key benefit, at home, the users would be able to set up their characters and also develop, grow, and nurture their characters. But also we are going to put in a competitive element inside it, whereby the users have to go down to stores and allow their characters to compete against each other. So taking into account that we are going to cater to both the boys and the girls, there will be different kinds of competition that they would like to engage in. For the boys, their characters will be engaged in a battle of strength, while the girls, they will be engaged in a battle of beauty. So the key benefit here is that it will be able to drive store traffic as kids will want to go down more to the stores and at the same time drag along their parents. So the question next is, how are we going to engage the parents in this? So first of all, whenever the kids make up a character, they first have to put in their gender as well as their ages. And whenever they play, they will be prompted with recommendations of toys based on their age groups. And whenever the kid sees a toy and they like it, they will actually click on it and develop a wish list which would be advanced to their parents' email accounts. So when their parents click on it, they will be directed to an online platform, an online retail store of Toys R Us, whereby at a glance it can see what toys do the kids want, what price is it at, and what are the specifications of these toys. The parent can also choose whether or not they want to make an online purchase and it will be delivered to them, or they can go down and pick up the toy, or they can also go down to the stores and purchase these items. So the key benefit here is that instead of giving out advertisements on a mass scale to these parents who are not very interested in those kind of methods, this provides a more targeted approach in engaging the parents. So how do these two tie together? Our Spotlight game is a platform which allows the parents and the children to come together. And it does this through a fun and interactive platform. So the key benefits here is really, first off, to bring the playful and enjoyable in-store experience of Toys R Us on a mobile platform. It is also to allow kids to have fun on this game. And lastly, but not least, allowing parents to have a hassle-free purchase experience. So now we've seen how we are going to make the online purchase experience more enjoyable. Let's now take a look at how we are going to establish the next strategy.
Once we've restored part of the magic of online as well as offline playing of toys, let's look a bit about how we can support these two systems. Firstly, we notice that in order to support this omni-channel partnership strategy, we need to look at two things. Firstly, supporting it in online, and secondly, supporting it in logistics. In terms of online, we notice a few things. Firstly, that online consumers tend to need to go to stores. Secondly, there have also been an absence of partners in places such as Hong Kong. There's also a lack of a unified look and feel, which we feel drives the need to develop a unified as well as online platform that represents what Toys R Us Asia stands for in terms of culminating both the online and offline experience. In terms of logistics, we notice that whatever logistics system is adopted is heavily dependent on geographic location. So hence, we also notice the need to focus on flagship stores. This is necessary because in order to complement the strategy of having that focus of the in-store retail experience, targeting these stores as the point of focus is key. Thirdly, we notice that requirements of delivery are different from country to country, and this has led us to consider how we need to establish key local partners in terms of distribution. Looking a bit further into it, we notice that in order to support this omni-channel strategy, we need to do three things. Firstly, identify suitable partners for logistics and delivery. Secondly, to support these logistical functions. And thirdly, to build online systems that will enable this environment to take place. Now, to implement our partnership, we first identify our key partners. And we notice that for Toys R Us Asia, firstly, the requirements in Hong Kong as an example, are firstly such things as the high density of population, and secondly, the quick and busy pace of life that characterizes work here. Hence, we notice the requirements of its consumers time shy, as well as the fact that many locations can be reached within close proximity. Hence, we identify several criteria that will be suitable for identifying a key partner in the logistics. Firstly, the partner needs to have distribution coverage and needs to have extensive network coverage. Secondly, the partner also needs to possess the ability to handle quick shipments. This is in line with the fast-paced lifestyle and people requiring these deliveries to take place quickly and on time. Thirdly, we also see the requirements that partners need to have having close interaction with Toys R Us. This is necessary as we need to establish these close links throughout our entire supply chain. Now, to establish the partnership, we see several things. Firstly, in Toys R Us, Toys R Us needs to manage internal inventory. And Toys R Us Asia also needs to track these store and online purchases. This is important so as to be able to develop the data that it needs to share with logistics partners to ensure that supply and demand have smooth transitions. On the part of the logistics partners, we notice that the logistics partners need to do several things. Firstly, they're key to providing local knowledge, especially when entering new markets in Asia. Secondly, to providing transportation networks, key, especially when entering new places. Thirdly, also logistics partners need to look into having constant process updates with Toys R Us. We see very close linkages taking place between these two to ensure that customers get experience that typifies what Toys R Us Asia stands for. Now, having looked a bit at logistics, let's take a look at online. In order to synchronize the experience of the consumer and to make it holistic, we notice the need to match that excellent in-store experience with online. And we see this being made possible through having an online platform where customers are able to enter a virtual store, move around the store, as look through the store, they'll be able to navigate through different aisles and experience it as it were being in the store itself. We believe that this is key as customers are able to experience what it would be like and the desirability of visiting the store, experiencing the magic that stores are able to offer. At the same time, we see this as being a potential for nice visual pop-ups to approach the consumer as the consumer navigates the store, notifying them of things, of exciting events, such as the challenges that could take place in these stores. And so hence we see a strong synchronization of the possibilities with the offline and the online space. In doing so, customers are also able to identify price specifications through navigating the website and the digital store to check out things as they would an almost physical catalog. Now, in doing so, we understand the necessity of establishing and investing in the development of this online space, as well as to unify this across Toys R Us Asia, such that the experience is consistent, and we see this as being possible because it's digital. Now that we've seen our strategies for how we can manage and support our systems, let's take a look at how our strategies impact Toys R Us Asia as an organization.
Hi, so based on our strategy, we foresee the revenue proportion from online sales to hit about 20% of total sales by 2018, because we have a 5-year plan strategy based on our current strategy. So if our assumptions are more optimistic, for example, if market growth rates are a lot more optimistic than we think they are, then we foresee this online sales to hit about 25% of total sales. And in a pessimistic scenario, we see it hitting only about 10%. So although we will we will be able to establish much revenue from these online sales, we also have to consider the various costs that are involved as well. And together as a team, we've come up with the various cost considerations that we've come up with for our strategy. As you can see here, the main cost drivers here would be, for example, the app development costs in our Enjoy strategy, as well as the online platform development costs, which we see increasing R&D costs under our established strategy. So, as mentioned earlier, there was a pessimistic scenario where we saw revenue growth rates to be much lower than we hoped it would be. This revenue assumption here is driven by several risk factors, which we will now go through. For example, firstly, if there's a slow uptake on the app, which is called Spotlight, we see revenue growth rates falling to a much lower rate. of course, we can mitigate this risk by first revamping our app, by first acquiring the various consumer insights that we have. We have to first find out what exactly is it that will attract kids to this app, and then revamp the app to make sure it's more attractive to them. Of course, if this app still proves to be unsuccessful, we can then look at other ways to engage children on an emotional appeal. Because remember, that's what we're actually going for, to try to engage children on an emotional appeal as well. Also, we foresee that there could be problems in finding a logistic partner. In this case, we can work out the disagreements with potential partners to see what is it exactly that our partners do not want to work with us for. And also, of course, we can add various incentives to try to attract these logistic partners to us. So now that we've considered the various risks involved, it is also important for us to consider how exactly we're going to implement this timeline for our strategy. So as you can see here from the, I guess the projection is a little smaller, you can't really see the full 3E strategy. But as you can see from the most part of the strategy here, there are 3 key points that I'd like to highlight to you. Firstly, as you can see here, we have various activities that can be carried out immediately from the current year. For example, we can develop the game, or we can develop in-store capabilities under our Enjoy strategy. And this is important because we need to bring back and update our stakeholders to let them know that our plan here is not just about planning, it's about doing. We have things that we can carry out immediately. Next of all, as you can see here, the activities are carried out across the whole 5-year plan. Now this is important as well because firstly, we do not want there to be any one point in time where our activities are too financially taxing on the company. Secondly, it is also important for us to have things to update our stakeholders, to tell them that, that we are carrying out various activities across time and that there's no period of inactivity. So, at the start of this presentation, we talked about how Toys R Us had a challenge as it was trying to enter the e-commerce business. However, we believe that with our 3E strategy, where we first explore the various strategic considerations, and then we created an enjoyable online experience, and lastly, where we established partnerships and established good partnerships with logistic partners, we can ensure that Toys R Us is able to have a successful and strong online presence and continue to create beautiful childhood memories for children of future generations. Thank you.
Hello, does this work? Well, first of all, thank you very much. You guys covered a lot of territory in a very short space of time. I guess my first question is not really related to the actual case study, but just a sort of a sense from you guys. You know, looking back now, you know, in the last 25 minutes of your presentation, how do you feel about it? And you know, I know you don't have much time, and do you feel that you put enough time into each part of your presentation? It seemed to me, how do you feel having finished it?
I think in terms of the presentation, I think where we see our focus here and our emphasis here is about the experience that consumers get, especially when it comes to the children and their parents. And I think about the positioning of how Toys R Us Asia wants to meet this changing need for merging both the online and offline space. And I think we see that's where our focus should lie, and which is why we emphasize especially the spotlight as how a means for which consumers can interact with the retail environment.
Yeah, let me be more specific. I guess what I'm asking is that having done the presentation, do you feel you put enough emphasis on each part to make the point to us as judges, I guess, looking back now? That's the key question.
Hi, I think looking back, as you've mentioned before, we've only been given a very short span of time, but we believe that we have been able to cover much in terms of breadth, but in terms of implementation, the specifics of it, we weren't granted enough time to do so. But if we were granted enough time, I guess in that sense we will be able to develop it more in a more detailed sense.
Okay, I'll start and then I'll pass it to my learned colleagues here. I think the first thing is that you guys started extremely well. You know, you've got a huge disadvantage here. I'm in the toy business and been in for about 10, 12 years. And Patrick on my right runs the marketing and CRM for Toys R Us. So, you know, you're talking to guys who are very experienced. But you hit all the right sweet spots. You talked about a differentiated experience. You talked about price being similar online, offline. You talked about profitability, really important. And then you talked about uniqueness, and you talked about being engaged, and you talked a little bit about emotion. And those are all the right buzzwords for me in an industry where you're really trying to capture an emotional relationship with the child. However, I didn't feel you went on to explore those as much as you should have. And in the end, we got sort of, for example, from my perspective, I think you guys ended up doing a hell of a lot rather than keeping it simple and focusing on this really huge emotional relationship between the child and the mum. And what I'm saying is that if a child goes shopping for toys, online or offline, they want to be, we use the word wow. Wow, this is so cool, I want to get in the store. You talked about your experience as kids. So I don't think you've played enough to that, you know, throughout the rest of the presentation, which I think is a key criteria. And how to take the wow online, you know, for various age groups is a key part of this. I think in terms of then getting down to strategy, explore, you're doing your homework, etc., I think that was important. However, there's a very big differentiation between kids consuming and mum and dad paying. And again, I think that relationship could probably have been taken a little bit further in the presentation. I loved your online game, Spotlight. You know, you may need to patent it and we'll come and talk to you in a while, but I think it's a great concept for getting kids. I think what I liked about it was that it was relevant to characters, so it could play to movie themes and things like that. You could get licensed characters. I liked the fact that it was collectible, so there was more characters involved, and then I liked the fact that you actually drove kids into the store. So I think that relationship between online and offline and making sure that the experience was ultimately going to get them into the store, I think was very important. I got a little bit lost in the last part, established the delivery platform and logistics, where I think in today's environment, for me, that's almost a given. You know, the delivery to your home and all of that. There's so many players in the field that it's probably not a key core competency anymore. It's just accepted by the consumers. And then the other thing I did like tremendously was, you know, probably more for kids than for parents, was to create the offline store online and allow kids to be able to roam. I thought it was really, really excellent. So that's my short summary before we come back to some more questions. So, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. So my full disclosure is I'm really not an expert, so that's the good news for you. But I do have an 8-year-old. He's not shopping online yet, but he's a future customer. So I won't repeat Peter's comments, but I agree with virtually everything he said, including the energy that you came on the stage with and the positivity. And I think your presence, actually, so congratulations on your presence as well for four of you. Couple of comments from me. You know, the future alpha markets, India, China, these markets, you touched on a really interesting point about those, which is different buying habits and the culture. I think there's a theme there that you've hit on something, which is an opportunity, it's possibly a threat. You were coming at it from the credit card point of view, the financing side, the payments. I'm a banker, so I'm interested in that sort of thing. Is it an opportunity? Is it a threat? Is it just something to be explored? What does it mean for other markets? I think there's something there in general to be thought about. What does it mean in the big high net worth markets that you already have? You know, Hong Kong's, the Singapores, the Australias, Japan, etc. So something to think about there. I like your idea of creating the in-store experience online, but I'm not sure that anyone's actually achieved it at a AAA level or at the right standard that you're probably thinking about. So I think that needs thinking about. It's a great idea, but who's actually achieved it? Who can do it? And I also liked your comment about the execution plan, and I think where you were headed with that was efficient resource allocation. One of my questions was going to be to you, or one of my constructive criticisms was going to be, I think you passed over the cost element. You mentioned once that costs are important, obviously, but if you think about the markets you're talking about, think about Hong Kong, think about the cost of real estate, think about inflation on the mainland. Cost is a huge issue, not a small issue. The margins are under massive pressure, which is one of the reasons that e-commerce is important. So I'd like to see, it's boring I know, and I think Peter's comments are, it's much more fun, you know, to talk about the big ideas, and that's clearly right and going to drive sales. But I suspect there's another side of this, which is the daily reality of meeting the sales targets in a very difficult environment, you know, when people are under pressure. And that plays into another comment about flagship stores. Flagship stores sounds like a great idea, but who can afford the rent if in this environment, or the environment we're about to head into, where GDP is under pressure, costs go up, and we have that situation. That's it from me.
Thank you very much for. I'm happy to see your presentation, which is pretty amazing. We are talking about a lot of the experience and in-store and kids emotional approach in this way. But because actually I working in the Toys R Us for so many years, and actually I have some more focus on your idea to how to execute. For example, one thing I heard you mention about to produce a website for the shopping environment. Look, it works like a shopping in the store. Right, it will view images and pop up, etc., and then it tour around the store. But do you also consider whether is it convenient for the customers if they want to shop in the web? Because it may take a long time for them to search around the product online, like in the shop. But in some customers, they really want to. Okay, I want to make it fast, easier for me to get what I want instantly.
Extremely valid comment. I think we completely support that, and we see the necessity of having both the traditional sites where purchasing decisions are easy to make, and you have drop-down lists of I'm looking for a toy, for example, my son who's 10 years old, I'm looking for an educational toy, drop-down menus as a typical website is. Hence, we see the possibility, not just the possibility, but the necessity of having parallel kinds of sites. So, for example, you enter the store and you say, I'm here to buy something, like, you know, straight away, you can click on that and then you bring it to the page where you have catalogs. As opposed to I'm here for the experience, and then you will be following through the digital store as we have. And hence, we completely agree with you in this sense.
That's good, yeah. Because what I want to point out is that sometimes when we're facing the customers, we know that there are so many different customers, so many needs. So the best thing is, okay, you provide choice for them. You may be if you want to enjoy the tour, like the online, then you can click here, or you just click and check out, click here. Then that should be to fit your customers' needs in some way. Secondly, on one another hand, which is I learned that you talk about when you talk about one's online system, one is logistics. But besides these two parts, any areas that you think is important when you develop the omni-channel?
Of course, I think we see, so logistics is one part. So we think about different departments that we have. First of all, we will need to think about as well as how to develop these capabilities of online. So we need much investment in both the human resources as well as the technology involved in developing the application. We also would think of aspects such as the finance related, as very carefully mentioned here, about how we need to look at consideration of cost.
My recommendation is when you talk, besides the technical or the system investment, but also when you develop the omni-channel, you also may need to consider about the people, because we as a retailer migrate to an online business. Then how to get the people get used to or accept that the changes is also a very critical point to get them to really can help to support to benefit each other.
Okay, let me ask, I wouldn't mind exploring a couple of options with you and pick your brains. So I know it's tough when you're in your early 20s, I'm guessing, you know, so trying to consider how kids shop and behave. But I think one of the important things that, that was listed out in the documentation was that the discussion about the online store being an extension of the offline store shopping experience, both for mums but particularly for kids. And so if we go to the O2O an omni-channel sort of experience, I think the challenge that we in the industry have is how to capture kids online with the same emotional attachment that you do when they're in the store. And the cornerstone of getting toy shopping online in Asia in particular, you know, one of the things that you guys, I think, if you bring this business to Asia, the seasonality of toys in Asia is very different to what it is in the US, Australia, or in Europe, where probably about, in the US, 45% of toy shopping takes place in about 2.5 weeks around Christmas. You don't get that kind of concentration elsewhere. So the level of competition that comes in from Amazon and Walmart and what's the other big box retailer, all the big box retailers, Target, etc., is immense, and they use it as the loss leader to capture business, which absolutely destroys the Toys R Us business around Christmas time when their margins get significantly eroded. When you bring that into Asia, it's very different. We don't have that level of concentration of shopping occasion around peak times. It's significantly more spread out. And so one of the reasons Toys R Us is quite successful in Asia is that we don't have people trying to make loss leaders out of toys, because they significantly lose money all the time if they try and do that. So I think the level of competition in Asia was something I would have focused on. And I think you made the right point that you want same price online, offline. Most people in Asia, when they do online retailing, they tend to have a 25 to 30% reduction in price, or else they go and ship in from overseas. So the other thing that was missing for me in the presentation was the analysis of the industry a little bit, and then sort of understanding the competitive nature, and why, if you look around Asia, there probably is only one toy store of note. It's Toys R Us. If you go to even department stores, and if you go to hypermarkets across Asia, the concentration on toys and proliferation is significantly less. So one of the challenges for us in the industry is that we believe a slower approach into online was the right way to experiment. Rather, and I know you talk about tactical versus strategic, I agree with you. The Toys R Us approach was very tactical to try and get a sense of what is the customer response and feedback going to be. And whether we were right or whether we're wrong, you know, I think every single retailer, never mind toys, every single retailer in the world today is going through this experiment of online to offline. And if anybody had the real answer, I think they would have found it. I think all of us are still trying to find the right answer. So it's really, really, really difficult solution to come up with. But that said, customer service online, I think, is a key issue. Again, certainly the number of clicks to clicking out. If I'm a mum or a dad and I'm busy, I want to get out of the shop pretty quickly online. Kids don't necessarily. One of the other areas you guys could have considered was content. When kids go online, they want to see content. And there's a lot of content around that keeps them glued to the site, that keeps them emotionally involved with the brand. One of the other things in Asia that's really important is that we live in generally much smaller homes than we do in the West. And so the concentration of toys that you can actually bring home and the size of toys that you can actually keep in your house significantly different. So again, it leans itself towards more shopping occasion, less buying, than where in the US or Australia maybe less shopping occasions, more significant buying. And again, that's a key differential. So again, it's something that at the start of the presentation you talked about customer surveys and discussions like that, but you never explored it as far as I would have liked to Asianize the business model. So the Toys R Us business model in Asia has a lot of smaller stores, probably carrying less range of product than it does in the US, etc. And it's something I would have asked you guys to explore a bit further. Sorry.
I just want to ask you what it is you were trying to achieve. I think I could answer it for myself, but I'm more interested in your short answers to that question. If I backed you into a corner and said, there's one thing you were trying to achieve with this presentation for the business, not to win the contest, I mean for the business, what were you trying to achieve?
I think in two things. Firstly, there is much magic in the toys, and that this can be brought online. And secondly, would be Asia is not one place. Asia is very different, and each place requires considerations targeted at the consumers there.
Sorry, just to add on to the previous point of the cost considerations, I feel that, yeah, your points are extremely valid in terms of the inflation cost, the cost of real estate and everything. But I think for our strategy, we will consider more of the costs directly linked to our various strategies, such as the app development and various costs such as that. So I think one of the key things that we wanted to talk about was that we will incur a large amount of cost at the start of our plan. And then later on, we're trying to make it worth it by having a much larger online presence. So it was kind of like taking a short-term pain for much longer-term growth in terms of the online sales.
Is your assumption that the marginal return of an online sale is the same as a physical sale? Or do you think there's differential profit opportunity there?
There's definitely a differential because although our price is similarly priced in terms of the online and offline sales, in terms of online sales, there'll be much lower fixed costs, for example. So in that sense, the margins for the online sales will be much higher.
So then, one of the things, again, just trying to explore that to attend, one of the things you need to think about is the technology platforms behind the online, because they're incredibly expensive. You then have on-site support, off-site support, development, etc. One of the things we found in our business is that you think that you'll reduce your headcount a lot when you utilize more technology, and strangely, you never do.
Sorry, last comment. Can you guys just comment to me briefly about whether going online and going omni requires an integrated organisation structure, or in your model, do you see the guys running online being different from the guys running offline?
I think there definitely needs to be an integrated strategy because we're not looking to separate our online and offline business. We were looking for them to create synergies. So for example, our online information such as how much our consumers purchasing, where are the trends going towards. These are similar trends that always apply to the offline store as well. And the people that are handling such inventory management definitely needs to know what should they stock in both the online and offline. So this is also a way for us to read the synergies between the information we get online as well as offline. So that definitely needs for integrated management.
I have one last question about you mentioned also we also have a very good loyalty program. But I didn't see any focus which is talk about how the loyalty program can help on your online business. Maybe you have any other points you want to add on this area?
Hi, so referring you back to our game, Spotlight, the benefits of being a loyal customer here is that whenever you become a loyal customer, whenever you go into a loyalty program, I assume that usually you will write down your email address and so on and so forth. You have the details and the contact details. So whenever the children set up accounts, whenever the children set up a character, they will not need to go through the hassle of entering the details of their parents. So that will be how we're going to incorporate it inside our strategy.
And definitely with the add of the Spotlight, we can definitely bring our loyalty program a lot further in terms of having these perks in our game. So, for example, having them to be the first to know about discounts and promotions that are going on in our store. So that's definitely a direct channel that we have with our users that we can bring our loyalty program a step further.
Thank you. Maybe I also suggest you maybe once you get the loyalty program, that means you also know the customer behavior. That's a very good important point for helping the customers to make recommendations or the right product, right recommendation, right offer to the right person at the right time.